heading to the mountains. This is our first trip since we both retired, and we're excited to be getting out of town.
Yeah, we get to go to some places that we've not been to before, as well as revisiting some places that we've been anxious to see again.
Our first stop was Cooke State Park in St. Ignace, Michigan.
This is right outside of Mackinac Island and right next to the Mackinac Bridge, one of the places we have not been to before.
Yeah, right over the bridge in, I guess, Upper Peninsula, technically.
Correct, yeah.
So as we pulled in, we were a little bit disappointed because it was basically a parking lot, but actually ended up being a very, very nice visit. We had great neighbors, and the spot had electricity, which is a little bit unusual, but we didn't come here for the electricity or the amenities. What we really came for was this amazing view of the Mackinac Bridge.
Yeah, we decided to spend an extra day here for a couple reasons, one of which paid out great to go to Mackinac Island, which we've never been to before, but the other was because it's near a registered dark site where we thought we could do some astrophotography. That did not work out so well because of the cloud cover, but we had overall great weather during the day, and we did kind of endure a storm one of the nights, but had a great time and spent a lot of time on our bikes. Crossed over on the ferry to Mackinac Island, and really just had a wonderful visit. Well worth the extra time there. These are some of the scenes from our trip to the island, the Grand Hotel, and then we brought our bikes over on the ferry and just rode around the entire island. 8.2 miles or something.
8.2 miles for the entire island, yeah. And we got a little extra here and there, but that was the gist of it. Mackinac Island, for those who don't know, has a ban on any type of motorized vehicle, so the only way around is by bike, foot, or horse. And we did see a lot of horses on this visit.
And evidence of horses. We had received a rather bossy text that we needed to go see this place, Arch Rock, and climb all of these steps. So we, of course, follow instructions to the letter. We did go all the way up to Arch Rock, and it was an amazing view. So it was well worth it, and we can even forgive the bossiness of the text that we received.
Thanks for the recommendation, Billy.
Yeah. Great views from up there. Happy to have gotten a couple of great shots here.
As we circle back into town, it all of a sudden gets very, very people-y. We do everything we can to avoid other bikers, walkers, and of course the horses. But we're pretty proud of ourselves for completing the loop. We find a very coveted parking spot for our bikes and decide to hike it a little bit around.
So we had a lot of impressions from this visit to Mackinac Island. I think that there's a lot of historical significance that's interesting, and I know that's particular interest to Mishka, and she spent a lot of time kind of exploring those historical items and spots. I think we both agreed it was a little bit touristy as well, and as we said earlier, very people-y for peak season. Good place to visit. We enjoyed it. It was someplace we had never been before, but from a landscape photography perspective, there's some good views and some interesting sights, a lot of history, and you just have to be willing to kind of put up with the touristy side of it in order to enjoy all of those things.
About 5:30 in the afternoon, we decided it was time to head back to the campground.
Yeah, the ferry schedule is pretty strict, and there are a lot of people going to, as it turns out, Mackinac City, not to St. Ignace. So we were in a long line for a while, but they did route us back to the St. Ignace line, which was much shorter. And we had to remember, after we got off the ferry, we were going to have to ride our bikes another 2 miles back to the campground. From Michigan, we went to Cooke State Park in Minnesota. This place was a great find. We spent one night there. Would love to go back and spend some more time. Great trails and great environment. We didn't have as much time to enjoy all of that as we'd like, but it was a great campsite. We had nice tent pad, good coverage, and just beautiful surroundings.
Now, this is the kind of campground that we like because you feel like you have it to yourself. Cooke is known for its 200-foot suspension bridge that spans the St. Louis River. It's known as the Swinging Bridge. And yes, it does swing.
Yes, we both experienced that. As other hikers went across and we were trying to take videos or photos, it was a little bit challenging at times.
It was very swingy. The other thing that Cooke State Park is known for is its tilted rocks, also known as the Thompson Formation. There is not a single horizontal rock to be found in this portion of the park.
Which makes the photography very interesting.
They're all 45 degrees and they're all incredibly cool.
Yeah. Always on the lookout for wildlife. There were bear postings that we were alerted to. and but this was the only wildlife we really got a picture of, this little guy.
We left Minnesota and headed to North Dakota, where we stayed at Fort Abraham Lincoln State Park in Mandan, North Dakota. This is a cool state park.
It's got a lot of combinations of things that are of interest to us. So it had a museum, it had a restored Mandan village called Honestland Village, and it also had the fort itself and a lot of history behind that fort.
The campsite was on the confluence of the Hart and Missouri rivers.
We were literally backed up to it. We were, I think, the closest campsite to the edge of the river. Beautiful.
It was very hot, but absolutely beautiful.
It's 100 degrees when we arrived. We did see some more wildlife, beaver, and got to get a lot of good shots of the confluence. Mostly sunset. Pretty tired for the sunrise pictures.
In the morning, we packed up camp and decided to go and check out the park.
Yeah, so this area has the museum as well as what would you call it? The park service or park
offices.
Park offices, yeah. And also it has a pathway to the reproduced Mandan village. The museum has an interesting collection. It covers both the Mandan history as well as the fort's history, but also the time that Lewis and Clark expedition came through. And all of these different time periods, all of these different events are captured really well in this small little museum that we walked through.
Yeah, they even touch on the CCC and the work that they did in helping to restore and build the museum and restore some of the buildings that were there.
So we tried to pronounce everything respectfully and ultimately learned that slant is actually slant on a slant. It was not on a slant or anything like that, because the village is actually on a slant towards the Missouri River.
We left the On a Slant village and headed over to the infantry post, where we basically had the whole place to ourselves.
This was a series of the lookout points that were arranged at the top of the hill. As I understand it, there were also infantry barracks up here at one point, but they were moved down. All the lumber was taken to support the cavalry unit down lower on the fort property.
There were no signs or anything telling you not to go to the very top, so I guess we need to go to the very top, right?
That's not always the case. You don't have to go to the very top of everything. That's my opinion.
We'll see. it was worth the climb. Oh, I forgot to mention that General Custer, prior to Little Bighorn, was actually the commander of Fort Abraham Lincoln.
They've reproduced his home here. They've indicated kind of the stone foundation pieces for the officers' residence or barracks. Pretty interesting stuff altogether. And again, just another overlay of the history of this place.
And you can actually take a tour of the reproduced home for $8 you can buy at the commissary. We did not do that because, well, I'd probably still be there if that was the case. They did let me look into the windows though. Before heading out, we went to check out the commissary. They had a little bit of everything, a cafe, all kinds of souvenirs, and almost like a mini museum. Just about any book you'd ever want on the Great Plains and General Custer. After the commissary, we headed out, but we weren't going very far.
For the first time on this trip, we were not going to leave the state. We were staying in North Dakota. Now we're going to Painted Canyon and Theodore Roosevelt National Park, one of our favorite places to visit.
Theodore Roosevelt National Park has many sections to it, Painted Canyon being one of them. We only had time really to go to Painted Canyon and the southern portion of the park, which is right outside the town of Medora, North Dakota, where everything is cowboy themed. For the first time on this trip, we got to use our National Parks Pass getting into Theodore Roosevelt National Park. And of course, we headed to the Visitor Center.
We were first in this park in 2014, and we were just blown away by its beauty and the access that you got through the park road. And we were excited to revisit this place this year to kind of compare it to our memories and also to see what's changed. It was incredibly hot this time around, where last time we had kind of a mostly overcast and even drizzly day. As a result, we saw a lot fewer animals this time around compared to the first time. But the beauty is still stunning. We were still very impressed and very excited with each of the scenes as we kind of pulled up on them. One part of the road was closed, so we didn't get to do the full loop this time, but we had a great time.
That's the Little Missouri River down below. She's much lower than she was in 2014 when we were here last. Before heading to the campground, we decided to grab some dinner. It's been a long day, and of course, the restaurant had to be cowboy themed. I'd originally wanted to get a campground in the national park, but they weren't available, so we went with the state park, which was about 1.5 miles away.
Yeah, short drive to Sully Creek State Park.
I got nervous when we hit the dirt road, and I got extra nervous when I saw the pit toilets, but it actually ended up being a really nice day. In addition to tent camping and traditional RV camping, this camp actually had equestrian campsites as well, so we got to see some horses, which is always awesome.
Yeah, I think that this state park does not give a great first impression, but as we kind of settled in, we became very attracted to the place. It has a great backdrop with a butte of sandstone kind of behind it, and if we were going to stay for extra time, it seemed like a perfect location for some astrophotography. We got up early and packed up camp to avoid the rain that North Dakota needed desperately. We were going back to changing states daily, heading from North Dakota to Montana. In another first for us, we stayed at our first KOA in Great Falls, Montana. This was more for, housekeeping, resetting before our big visit to the national park. And actually was pleasantly surprised. Thought it would be a lot more rudimentary. It's certainly not the kind of place you would camp for a nature experience, but it is very convenient for what we were trying to accomplish, which was to get everything recharged, everything washed, and to get replenished.
Once we set up camp and met the neighbors, we got to work on getting our laundry done, because that's been 6 days worth of laundry that needed to get caught up on. In the morning, we headed to Walmart to get our supplies. In retrospect, we really should have been wearing masks.
Yeah, this is future John telling this John to put your stupid mask on. Foreshadowing.
We filled up on gas and washed the windows, because where we're going to want a clear view. We've made it to the mountains.